And I think, sir, as so many in the chamber have already expressed in their contributions, there's broad support for this bill. It is common sense, and I think South Australians for many, many years now have led the way on waste reduction, protecting the environment and conservation, and I know that is something that's very true and held dearly to my electorate. My electorate is full of natural open areas, Belair National Park and many other Wake Conservation Reserve and many other open spaces, and it's also its electors are certainly environmentally conscious and ones who want to see a proactive legislative agenda in this matter from government. So it's fantastic to see that the government at the moment is proposing this debate. And part of protecting that environment and looking after our precious resources is indeed the reduction of waste and acknowledging that waste does have an impact on our environment. So as a whole, as the member for Hurdle alluded to in her contribution, there are a lot of good points, but there's some points we need to nut out in the committee stages, especially around those in the disability sector. Deputy Speaker, plastics, of course, are part of our everyday lives. They are durable, versatile, low cost, high strength to weight ratios on many products these days, make more efficient instruments such as cars and planes. And of course, those type of plastics used in these instruments help with fuel consumption and reduce emissions. However, we are all aware of the widespread negative impact of plastic waste. According to Green Industries SA, over the last 50 years, plastic production has risen from 15 million tonnes to 311 million tonnes, and this is expected to double over just the next 20 years. Even small portions of that tremendous level of plastic products as waste in our environment leaves us with significant adverse impacts across the globe. Our oceans, rivers, beaches, marine life, national parks and wildlife suffer instrumentally from plastic litter and waste. This then flows onto the impact of the economy, including fisheries, tourism and shipping. And the cost to the marine ecosystem alone as a result of plastic litter is estimated by the United Nations to be $3 billion per year across the globe. With plastics forming such a widespread part of our everyday life, yet also having such devastating negative consequences for our environment and our economy as a waste, a balance needs to be found. And once again, Green Industries SA summarises the current situation well when they say, and I quote, "While plastics are convenient, adaptable, useful and economically valuable material, there needs to be a better reused and recycled way to deal with plastic." And I'm immensely proud that our state leads the nation in recycling, with a staggering 84% of our waste redirected from landfill and put to better use, as we have been doing so for many, many years. South Australia, Mr Deputy Speaker, as you know, led the way with our container deposit scheme established over 40 years ago to deal with litter reduction and resource recovery. And in the context of this debate, it's maybe an opportune time to look at how potentially that container deposit scheme could be further enhanced and improved. In 2017-18, South Australia collected collection deposits and depots covered almost 603 million containers, refunding over $60 million back to the community. And such a wonderful initiative also helps community groups, sporting clubs and charities with much-needed funds. And I certainly know the scouting organisations in my electorate, especially Belair and Blackwood Scouts, are always out there collecting bottles and cans for recycling and raising much-needed funds for their scouting organisations. We were also the first state to ban lightweight plastic bags at the checkout. And each year since its implementation in 2009, this has helped remove 400 million single-use plastic bags from circulation in South Australia and help stimulate the development of alternative products. And I think in this debate around single-use plastics, it's not just about the positive environmental effect about removing single-use plastics from circulation. It's the market that it's saying, it's the signal that it sends to the market about creating alternative products. And as we move through this COVID world, about what South Australia can really excel at and take advantage of, and of course that is manufacturing, which we've had such a proud history in. But one area that we can go back to is secondary industries in recycling. The pioneering efforts in the recycling space have led to a positive change in consumer behaviour, provide a great example for others states and territories to follow, and has brought praise from organisations like the UN Habitat that wrote in 2010, and I quote, "South Australians has demonstrated a high level of political commitment and willingness to stick its neck out and implement some policies and legislation upon which other administrations take a more conservative position." When we focus on reusing and recycling, we reap the significant environmental and economic benefits. A focus on returning materials back into the economy, reusing those materials again and again, means less waste and more opportunities for alternative product development. Recycling also generates jobs for South Australians. Once again, Green Industries SA estimate for every 10,000 tonnes recycled, 9.2 jobs are created, compared to 2.8 jobs for every tonnes that is deposited into landfill. It is encouraging that this bill is a further step in continuing that proud legacy of recycling and environmental protection. And since 2003, the recycling rate here in South Australia has improved by almost 22% as of 2017-18. Our state's vigilance in recycling metals, organics, masonry, glass, cardboard, paper and plastics has led us to be the best per capita resource recovery rate in the country. This means that 1.25 million tonnes of greenhouse gases are not being released into our environment, and that is the equivalent of planting 2 million trees. Every small effort in this regard makes a huge difference. Each South Australian plays their part in this success story when we use our yellow and green bins each day, adapting our own behaviour to embrace the growth in recycling methods. Nationally, COAG continues to focus, through the National Waste Policy, on improving the recyclability of our waste, increasing our capacity to reduce and improving the demand for recycled products. In this endeavour, it is vitally important that our recycling industry works well with our manufacturing sector and other new and emerging industries, and government, as one of the lead agencies, and through the work of EPA, of course, works with industry, with our manufacturers, to support those emerging industries and to give them confidence and surety in their processes. Both stakeholders need to understand the aims and priorities of the other in order to ensure our recycling efforts complement the capacities of manufacturing and other industries. So single-use plastics such as straws, cutlery, cups, packaging and takeaway containers feature prominently in the top 10 littered items in South Australia. And we all know that. Many of us, I know, participate in Clean Up Australia Day, and this year I was out with the Blackwood Action Group, which is a very keen local interest group in my community, and we were walking up and down Shepherds Hill Road, and the predominant waste that we were picking up was indeed plastic straws, cutlery, plastic packaging and the like. It is estimated that here in South Australia we use 700,000 straws each day, and somewhere between 190,000 and 575,000 disposable coffee cups each every day. And I know that over the last sort of 3-4 months of COVID-19, with our takeaway coffees, that number would certainly have had spiked. That is a lot of plastic in our landfill and polluting our environment each day. Recent years have seen increasing research into the damaging effects of these single-use items, followed in parallel with an increase in communities to address the problem. Through consultation, the Stakeholder Task Force and the Plastic-Free Precinct trials, we can see clearly that South Australians want to embrace action on single-use plastics. Businesses are willing to work with government in moving away from these products, as demonstrated by many businesses already reducing their use and turning to environmentally friendly alternatives. Indeed, some businesses in my electorate are ready to be commended for embracing single-use plastics already. And I can think of to mind the Fishman, Botanic Chicken and Seafood and the Little Leaf and Bean Cafe in Blackwood that have already eliminated single-use plastics from their takeaway operations. Mr Deputy Speaker, whilst I'm broadly supportive of this bill, I do want to voice my thoughts in relation to the disability sector and their needs in relation to single-use plastics, especially being vigilant in relation to durable and appropriate drinking straws. And I know this is something that will probably be further elaborated on the committee stage. And I know that broadly the disability sector is supportive of these changes, but we just have to make sure that people don't feel that what they currently use as, for example, drinking straws won't be removed from them and their ability to, for example, participate in outdoor dining and the like. So very important that we look after and have the disability sector front of mind. Another key issue is acknowledging the important role that packaging plays in the fresh food industry, and I would ask the Minister to seriously consider the views of this industry in looking at how we can continue to use packaging to keep our food remaining fresh for longer, while also addressing plastic waste. Plastic packaging provides a number of benefits to the fruit and vegetable industry. It assists in what Dr. Simon Lockery, RMIT University's sustainable product expert, calls, quote, a balancing act between packaging and food waste, end of quote. The Australian Fresh Produce Alliance commissioned RMIT University to conduct research into understanding the role of packaging on fresh produce. The report from this study stated that while there is concern about the level of packaging, quote, there are practical reasons for using packaging for certain fresh produce, whether it be to ensure product integrity in the supply chain, extend shelf life and or to avoid food waste. Plastic packaging helps protect fresh produce on long supply chains from producer to consumer. It also supports safe food production and promotes food security. It is estimated that $20 billion worth of food is lost or wasted in Australia each year, the equivalent of around 7.3 million tonnes of food. Packaging extends the shelf life of fresh produce, thereby helping to reduce food waste. For example, plastic film can extend the shelf life of a cucumber from a few days to around 14 to 20 days. By keeping food fresher for longer, there is more opportunity for food to be purchased and then consumed. And this is vital from a food waste perspective and allows more Australians to access more nutritional food and seeking that as an alternative to takeaway or off-the-shelf product. Minimising food wastage is important in, of course, protecting the environment. Indeed, there have been many studies that have found that the climate impact or carbon footprint of food waste can be higher than that of the packaging used to keep it fresh. Packaging of fresh produce allows more fruit and vegetables to be available to Australians so they can eat more nutritious food, and this is especially the case in regional and remote Australia and indeed South Australia where haulage times are longer and where produce needs to travel further to get to the plate of the consumer. Last year's National Health Survey found that only 51.3% of Australian adults consumed and recommended daily intake of fruit. With obesity and other chronic diseases such as diabetes becoming real concerns for our population, helping more Australians eat more fruit and vegetables has to be a key focus. Packaging of fresh produce also protects food along the supply chain, giving people with allergies peace of mind that the products they are purchasing have not been exposed to other elements. A celiac, for example, has confidence when purchasing a food product wrapped in plastic that the product has not been exposed to gluten while it was transported or while on display in the shop. All these elements need to be considered in any moves to change the packaging of our fruit and vegetables. There may indeed be better methods of maintaining this. We could work on shorter supply chains, promoting more ways for consumers to deal directly with producers, and even develop innovative packaging solutions to replace plastic. We also need to look, sir, at the other end of the problem when thinking of plastic packaging or fresh produce and other products. As part of the circular economy approach to packaging, can we do more to consider allowing soft plastics to be part of recycling that we do in our homes each and every week? Places like Woolies and Coles already offer to recycle people's soft plastics. Could recycling soft plastics through our household rubbish collection be a viable option in the future? I certainly hope so. In conclusion, Deputy Speaker, in the implementation of this legislation, I urge the Government to pay attention to ensure that South Australians are aware of the changes that hopefully will be coming their way, that we look after small business and people that are going to be affected by this transition. And whilst I welcome the bill, and I believe it will have a positive impact on our environment, I believe it's so important for South Australia, for South Australians to lead the nation in preserving our natural environment and resources for future generations, and indeed creating industry from what is every single day problem.
Minister